Or what?
They're leaning into woke. Hardcore.
They're petrified of some kind of backlash.
Nobody wants a movie about true love? What kind of woman do we want out there seeking true love, Eliana? It's the outrage.
I wanted my money back. It was very disappointing.
They are pretending like Rachel Zegler is the first of them all when she looks like Lord Farquaad in the film.
Every way that Disney changed the story, it changed it for the worse.
The new Disney boss babe, who is Rachel Zegler, the inverse of happy.
So she comes off as an insufferable, whiny brat.
No one on the right side of America can stand the star of this movie.
Rachel Zegler, like so many kids raised on TikTok, she's all for infantada is the only global solution.
So apparently, according to them and according to the writers of Snow White, women can't even want to be in love anymore.
I'm guessing that she's not married. I'm guessing that she doesn't have kids. The movie is a complete disaster, by the way.
Rachel Zegler, she's an...
Rachel Zegler is extraordinarily woke, but she's woke in a way that's quite deranged.
And, you know the saying, go woke, get broke, and Disney's going to lose money on this movie. And I believe it only made less than $1 million in China.
They spent $170 million to make the thing, and it had the lowest opening, under $50 million, of any of these live-action Disney remakes that they've ever had.
Rachel Zegler did more than simply assume the position. She started a fire beneath the Snow White whole Disney fan base and transformed the turn into one of the most talked about Hollywood scandals. This wasn't nope, not your average fairy tale reboot.
No, the original cartoon came out in 1937, and very evidently so. There's a big focus on her love story with a guy who literally stalks her. Weird. She's not going to be safe with the prince, and she's not going to be dreaming about true love.
Oh my God.
It was evident right away that wasn't going to be the charming traditional. People grew up adoring Disney stories, and it all began with the rise of the West Side Tale. The famous Snow White was cast as the star. Fans were first excited about a new face. What could go wrong? Then, with a huge talent, Rachel began to speak, but she didn't. Refrained from speaking in early interviews. Completely discredited the original Snow. 1937's White and the Seven Dwarfs, describing it as strange, out of date, and implying that it was filled with stale, pointless concepts. She gave the impression that it was Disney's favorite. The original princess film should have been in the trash, which is when the criticism truly began to cultivate ardent Disney devotees. Seems to be making fun of the very finding of those who grew up in the franchise, admired the original, and thought she was arrogant, like she believed she was superior to the position and the legacy it left behind, but that wasn't even as bad as it was.
Rachel Zegler also posted, F Trump kinds of posts on social media. She also said that she hoped that Trump supporters, quote, never know peace.
But you are not entitled to call for Trump supporters to be harmed. Like, you are actually not entitled to do that. And so let me just remind you, Rachel Zegler, of what the map looks like, just so you can understand when your Disney movie is coming out, how many people you are wishing harm upon. Like, this is America right now. I will love you through these 4 years as best I can. F Donald Trump. Yeah, totally stable thing for her to be posting, wishing harm upon Trump voters, wishing that we have no peace.
Interviews with Rachel began entering the political sphere, and she didn't just express her thoughts. She left and arrived for a portion of the American population, directing harsh remarks at proponents of her message to the former U.S. president, based on responses and an online video. In essence, she stated that everybody who cast a ballot for, he should leave and never be at ease. That was a powerful blow, and it blew up everywhere. Suddenly, on social media, this wasn't no longer merely a fairy tale. The selecting the cast, conducting the interviews, attitude, it all came together to create a massive PR. Ruin what should have been a magical. The Disney revamp descended into a full-scale. People and cultural lightning rods weren't merely irritated, they were indignant. Individuals who were still unsure about. Suddenly, Disney's live-action Snow White had a motive to jump ship and go quickly for. For many, it was more than just a film. They didn't want it anymore since it was personal. To invest heavily in a project that stars someone who seemed overtly antagonistic toward a sizable portion of the nation. Yes, Rachel Zegler did come out in the end. I apologize, but let's be honest. Critics didn't agree with it. The atmosphere was off. The tone seemed somewhat practiced. Referred to as PR damage control and a glittering, Disney attempted to sell the outfit in the interim. This reboot as a new, powerful, and dull. Adopt a timeless story, but rather than updating the 1937 in a respectful manner, they went into full demolition mode, classic. The magic is gone from the story's heart. Faded away.
And they postponed the release of this thing, Ben, for a year because their star, Rachel Zegler, was so unlikable, told all Trump supporters that they could f off, excuse me, but she did. That was just in November. They didn't even know she was going to do that one.
Zegler appeared pleased with the modifications. She boasted in several interviews about removing the romance and throwing away the Al and Snow White's love story. Doesn't require a man, she said, and although no one is upset with a strong and autonomous lead, that wasn't the problem. The entire fairy tale infuriated fans. Charm, the warmth of passion, and the sweetness. Romance that made the first one so beloved has been thrown away like in the original draft, the prince was Snow White's optimism that she will be rescued. Joy, he was now pushed aside like background information and hardly speaking. Seen and providing a significant random man in even the evil queen lost her due to wood energy. White, once motivated by Snow's envy. White was beautiful, but now she was just another. No iconic bland villain seeking power. Mirror scene without being fixated on the fairest. Nothing at all that Disney didn't. Update Snow White, they completely destroyed it. Changed its name and gained a large following. Questioning whether it was the same story at all. Not at all.
And then she came out and she said, I apologize. Like, I went too far. But it wasn't sincere.
The delightful. Songs that brought back fond memories of snow. White feels like a dream that has entirely vanished. Disney removed them and replaced them with a collection of recently released songs that critics called them hollow and swiftly tore them apart. Pompous and completely disconnected from. The magic was lost when the fairy tale spirit vanished. And the musical counterpart of a lecture. But Rachel's story didn't end there. Zegler went one step further by referring to the iconic prince as the one. People fell in love with a stalker for generations. She discussed the original 1937 romance as if it were a terrifying tragedy. Narrative rather than equipping the defenseless. Millions of people grew up observing admirers who cried at someday my prince will once. We were astounded to see their beloved story is torn to shreds, marked out-of-date garbage, and when everyone believed it couldn't get Messier.
The movie has a major identity crisis.
This is just so typical of the left. The progressives always finding a way to find their way back to doing something not progressive.
The movie is doing catastrophically. They spent $300 million and it currently has a 2.2 out of 10 rating on IMDb.
I sat through the whole thing. This was really bad. It was extremely leftist on every political dimension. Racial politics, sexual politics, class politics, regime politics. Its narrative was cowardly. It was just awful.
It's got extra musical numbers that are incredibly unnecessary that really add to that runtime. And let me go ahead and let you know that they're absolutely f***ing atrocious.
Disney deleted Someday My Prince Will Come and made a modernized feminist alternative.
They say all you have to do to make your wish come true is let it echo, 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 echo.
It's awful, generic. Never mind that the lyrics make no sense at all. All you have to do to make your dream come true is let it echo. Is it like on a metaphorical level? What is it?
Ziegler's former social. Let's simply say that media posts reappeared. Not that they were overflowing with Disney. Glitter in these rediscovered tweets, and she made fun of Trump supporters calling in videos. A variety of derogatory names and even wishing them a life devoid of tranquility. Those remarks didn't sit well, despite Trump's tone was disliked by several. Was simply too intensely personal, antagonistic, and when you're portraying a Disney princess insulting millions of family with a wide range of political Views isn't precisely an office with smart boxes. Disney made a step as the anger intensified. The marketing went into full-on panic mode. The machine kicked in hard, causing a scramble to safeguard the brand that PR representatives worked on, working long hours to tidy up the mess, extending gentler press angles, and polishing the image of Zegler. But guess what? Instead of dialing, she wasn't having it. Zegler stepped up their efforts on talk shows and interviews everywhere she went. It was obvious that she wasn't sorry for her opinions. I maintain my beliefs in, she repeatedly insisted. And while double downing is one thing, but remaining solid is another. Midst of a PR firestorm that's a completely new game that changed into a fairy tale resurgence as a reputation meltdown, with the internet refusing to let social media, but it wasn't finished with not even close screenshots of Rachel Zegler. Old interviews and statements continued to reshared everywhere, and the negative reaction just continued to create. A single viral tweet perfectly captured the atmosphere that she despises half of us and then anticipates that we will purchase. The type of post about her movie tickets didn't merely receive likes, it triggered intense boycott initiatives on TikTok X, previously YouTube, Twitter, and beyond. People were no longer only irritated, instead, they were completed, and when the movie eventually came out, the statistics in theaters were so bad that not only was the first weekend awful, but it was uncomfortable for a Disney princess film. And Zegler wasn't the end of the drama.
Is accusing Disney of inserting unnecessary feminism into classic fairy tales.
These big bad feminists now are telling us that's ridiculous. How dare you want to meet a handsome prince and be swept off of your feet and live happily ever after? No, you should want to be the prince. You should want to go out to the bad guys with a sword.
So no prince or a different kind of prince? I'm sure a lot of people will assume it's a love story just because like we cast a guy in the movie. Right. Andrew Burnap, great dude. Yeah. All of Andrew's scenes could get cut. Who knows? It's Hollywood, baby.
Who the hell are you to say all of Andrew's scenes could get cut? Like, who are you?
Oh my God.
Are you Disney? I've read your book, and I have. It's a phenomenal book. You're losing generation of loyal viewers. When you think about Snow White, what is the premise? What is the story?
It's a love story. It's a love story.
It's a dream for a girl to grow up and a man falls in love.
I'm really upset that it's the biggest theme here is that it's anti-men. She called him a stalker.
Because you just can't close your mouth. You just can't be sane, even when you do open your mouth. I think this girl does not deserve a feature-length film, but rather she deserves to be in a padded cell.
Let's discuss the original's dwarves. The Seven Dwarfs and Snow White weren't merely background noise, but the comic's emotional core. The lovable misfits provided relief by bringing genuine affection in the narrative, yet the actor, Peter Dinklage, took over by phoning the surpasses an antiquated stereotype and simply such that Disney became alarmed rather than adding dimension to the character's development. And admiration, the studio went nuclear. Early set, the dwarfs' alt was wiped together. Leaks revealed strange, jerky CGI. Animals that didn't even have a human appearance. Rumors began to circulate that these animals were being swapped out for a varied band of enchanted bandits, or something equally random was confused. The connection is lost and the charm completely lost the original. It became so messy that Disney allegedly returned in a desperate attempt to soothe the storm and fix everything, but it was. The critics were furious that it was already too late. Disability and betrayal were felt by admirers. The advocates were incensed that they weren't, requesting that the initial dwarfs be unaltered. They only desired those tasks to be assigned to little individuals, actors in a neighborhood with hardly any presence in important Hollywood productions. That's how 7 lead parts went. People noticed a decrease rather than advancement. Rather than magic, they witnessed a corporate chaos. And when the credits rolled, everyone had the same question: what became of the people from fairy tales? Weren't merely angry, they were shouting. Disney's hypocrisy is evident. stated that they wished to be progressive.
Then they got even crazier and they decided that the dwarves in Snow White weren't woke enough, okay?
These are roles made for actors of my stature. I can't go for the Harrison Ford or the George Clooney roles because that's not for me.
Right.
And now it's taken away. I don't feel that's right. Vote for the Harrison Ford or the George Clooney roles because that's not for me.
Right.
And now it's taken away. I don't feel that's right.
But ultimately carried out the precise contrary rather than providing visibility and significant contributions to a community that seldom get the attention they deserve, the opportunity to introduce them off the map, a more contemporary and considerate rendition of the. Instead, the famous dwarves were utterly wasted. We received unsightly CGI fillings that felt straight up, soulless, and empty. Forgettable. Nobody had any connection to them, as there was nothing with which to connect, and the harsh reality check followed. Disney was optimistic about the box office. With this one, they were counting on a huge opening weekend, at least $150 million for an adaptation of one of their most famous classics that appeared to be simple victories. Yet it was unsightly when the numbers fell. Snow White crept in place of the pyrotechnics to almost $43 million, which isn't only. That's a straight-up letdown. Catastrophe for a film that is said to have cost theaters worth more than $200 million were vacant. The public was not able to purchase tickets. Wasn't merely indifferent, they were. Parents claimed they couldn't avoid it. Connect to the film's new tone. Pompous, icy, and political instead of. Teens that are family-friendly and magically enjoyable. Claimed that long-standing Disney was cringeworthy. Fans, who felt insulted and thought the recreate spit on their beloved legacy by cinemas in the second week were already removing the film, which was rapidly falling. And experts in the box office were calling it among Disney's worst recent failures. Recollection.
Did the dwarfs make it or no?
Well, the CGI dwarfs did. Of course, that goes back to the original controversy where Peter Dinklage, a very talented little person actor, said, why are we doing that? We've hired a Latina actor to be Snow White. That's progressive. But you're going to hire little people to play the dwarfs? That just seems like a step backwards. And then, of course, Disney instantly buckled and said, okay, we're going to add magical creatures.
And the online reviews are really harsh. Critics did not withhold one highly regarded. No magic, no heart, just a comment. Try to fix something without delight that wasn't damaged, so I went even harder. It's unbelievable that they spent this much money on a film that disparages its own heritage. Even the tie-in-dolls and merchandise were ruined. Novels that are all intended to capitalize on the excitement. Wave simply remained unaltered on the shelves. Retailers were left with no customers desired, and dust accumulated on the shelves. Although fans moved on at this stage, it was obvious that Disney's Snow White wasn't merely a failure, it was a complete, behind closed doors, a fairy tale disaster. Insider leaks suggested that the mayhem was real. At a complete breakdown within Disney, executives at headquarters are rushing to figure out how this ostensibly secure wager turned out so incorrect. This was meant to be a faithful. Instead, brand extension is a surefire success. It became among the studio's most. Years of agonizing catastrophes on the finger pointing began right away for some. Insiders pointed the finger at Rachel Zegler's constant series of disputes on social media, stating that her online tone was switched off. So many individuals before the movie even dropped, others quickly pulled the script describing it as a meaningless mess that was unsure about what it desired to be, and next followed the actual Whispers mass discussion, circulating layoffs in the studio following a series of consecutive box office failures. It appeared as though heads were going to roll, and the last straw was Snow White. Meanwhile, everyone's attention was on Rachel Zegler's future with Disney is uncertain. A discussion among people in Hollywood were already discarding the feared. That's correct, the phrase box office poison. Despite her acting and voice prowess, possible controversy surrounding her. The name became too loud to ignore. Studios were slowly retreating, concerned that her divisive behavior could be more danger than benefit.